The tall spires of the Galactic Federation Military Academy stretched into the purple sky of Centauri Prime, their crystalline surfaces reflecting the light of 3 setting suns. Inside the grand entrance hall, 3 humans stood out sharply among the crowd of alien species. They weren't just different. They were the first humans ever admitted to the Academy in its 1,000-year history. Jack wiped sweat from his forehead, still adjusting to the planet's warmer temperature. Even after 6 months at the Academy, Earth's gravity had left its mark on him and his fellow humans. Their muscles and dense bone structure made them appear stocky and powerful compared to the generally tall, slender alien species around them. Maria walked beside him, her movements careful and measured. She had already broken 3 chairs by accidentally sitting down too hard, and none of them wanted any more awkward incidents. Behind them, Alex carried their shared data tablet, studying the Academy's final test parameters with intense focus. "Did you see this?" Alex whispered, tapping the screen. "The endless conflict simulation has never been completed, not once in 50 years. A group of tall, blue-skinned cadets passed by, their forearms gesturing dramatically as they discussed the upcoming test. One of them noticed the humans and quickly guided his group to the other side of the corridor. This wasn't unusual. Most species gave them a wide berth. Coming from Earth, classified as a death world, due to its high gravity and harsh conditions, made humans both fascinating and terrifying to the rest of the galaxy. The 3 humans made their way to the briefing hall, where Instructor First Rank Galax waited with their final assignment. The instructor's crystalline form sparkled under the lights as they entered. Like most of the faculty, Galax had initially opposed admitting humans to the Academy. Now, after 6 months of watching them train, the instructor's opinion had shifted from opposition to cautious curiosity. "Cadets," Galax's translator conveyed in flat tones, "you've faced the Academy's ultimate challenge. The endless conflict simulation represents a decade-long war scenario that has defeated every team for 50 years. The current record for survival is 3 months. Most teams fail within the first week." Jack noticed something odd in the way the instructor emphasized survival. It was as if completing the simulation had never been considered possible, only surviving it for as long as one could. "The simulation begins tomorrow at dawn," Galax continued. "You have 24 hours to review the parameters and prepare your strategy." As they left the briefing hall, a tall, gray-skinned cadet approached them. Unlike most aliens, Tam had actually befriended the humans during their time at the Academy. "I heard you got your simulation assignment," Tam said, falling into step beside them. "I failed it last year. Lasted 2 weeks. The scenario is impossible. It's designed to teach us about the futility of prolonged conflict." Maria smiled slightly. "Nothing's impossible. It's just that no one's found the right solution yet." "You don't understand," Tam insisted, all 4 eyes blinking rapidly. "The simulation spans an entire galaxy. It involves 15 different species, multiple political factions, and countless military units. The artificial intelligence adapts to every strategy. It's not meant to be won." Jack listened quietly, watching Alex continue to scroll through the simulation parameters. He had noticed lately that humans approached problems differently than their alien classmates. Where others saw immovable obstacles, humans tended to see puzzles waiting to be solved. Perhaps it came from evolving on a planet that constantly tried to kill them. Back in their reinforced quarters, designed specially to withstand their greater strength, they began reviewing the simulation's history. 50 years of attempts had generated massive amounts of data, all carefully documented by the Academy. "Look at this," Alex said, pointing to a pattern in the failed attempts. "Every team follows the same basic Galactic Federation military doctrine. None of them try anything really different. They're fighting the way they were taught to fight," Maria added, looking over at his shoulder. "But we weren't taught that way." Jack nodded slowly, a plan already forming in his mind. "That's right. We learned to fight on Earth, where playing by the rules wasn't always an option. Maybe that's exactly what this simulation needs, something it's never seen before. As the three sons sat outside their window, the human cadets continued their preparation, unaware that they were about to change the Academy's understanding of warfare forever. Sometimes they realized coming from a death world had its advantages. Tomorrow, they would show the galaxy exactly what those advantages were. Dawn came quickly on Centauri Prime, its three suns rising in rapid succession. The human cadets had barely slept, spending most of the night studying the simulation's history. Their quarters looked like a war room, with holographic displays showing battle patterns and strategy analyses floating in the air. Alex rubbed his tired eyes, but excitement kept him alert. Every single team tried to win through traditional space battles, he said, pointing to a cluster of failed attempts. Big fleets, standard formations, exactly like they teach in tactical classes. Maria pushed aside a half-eaten protein bar, specially made for Earth gravity species, and pulled up another set of data. Look at this team from 5 years ago. They almost made it to 4 months by focusing purely on defense. But they still played by Galactic Federation rules. Jack stood by the window, watching alien cadets hurrying across the Academy grounds below. "You know what this reminds me of?" he asked, turning to face his teammates. "Remember the Earth history lessons about guerrilla warfare? Small forces beating larger ones by fighting differently." A knock at their door interrupted them. It was Tam, looking concerned with all 4 eyes. "Everyone's talking about you three," the alien cadet said, stepping inside. "They're placing bets on how quickly you'll fail. The combat instructor thinks you won't last 2 days." "Good," Maria said with a smile that made Tam step back nervously. "Let them think that. Being underestimated is an advantage." Jack pulled up a new hologram, this one showing the simulation's galaxy map. "Tam, what if I told you we found patterns that no one else noticed? The simulation is based on Galactic Federation thinking. It expects everyone to fight like the Federation does." Tam's gray skin paled slightly. "But that's how war works. Fleet formations, proper battle lines, honorable combat protocols. On Earth." Alex interrupted. "We learned about something called asymmetric warfare. When you can't match your enemy's strength, you change the rules of the game." Maria pointed to specific points on the galaxy map. "Look here and here. Every team treats these trade routes as simple supply lines. But we see them differently. Each one is a potential weakness, a way to create chaos in the enemy's carefully organized systems." Chaos. Tam's translator struggled to convey their shock. "But the simulation requires maintaining order across the galaxy. You have to manage stable supply lines, coordinate fleet movements." "Says who?" Jack asked quietly. "The victory conditions only specify achieving galactic peace. They don't say how you have to do it." Alex pulled up the simulation's core parameters. "Everyone assumes you need a bigger, better organized fleet to win. But what if you could win by making traditional fleets useless? What if disorder itself became a weapon?" Tam looked increasingly uncomfortable as the humans explained their plan. It went against everything taught at the Academy, every principle of civilized warfare that the Galactic Federation held sacred. Yet there was a certain brutal logic to it that the alien cadet couldn't deny. "You'll be disqualified," Tam warned. "The instructors won't accept such unusual tactics." Maria's smile grew wider. "The simulation parameters don't forbid any of what we're planning. They probably never thought anyone would try it." As the final sun rose fully into the purple sky, the 3 humans gathered their equipment for the simulation chamber. They had spent 6 months learning how the galaxy thought war should be fought. Now they would show everyone how humans fought when survival was at stake. "One last thing," Jack said as they headed for the door. "Remember what we learned about Earth's old wars, how sometimes the best way to win isn't to be stronger, but to make strength itself a weakness." Alex finished, nodding. "Turn their advantages against them." They walked through the Academy's halls toward the simulation chamber, passing groups of alien cadets who whispered and pointed. Let them stare, Maria thought. Let them underestimate the Deathworlders. In 1 hour, they would understand why Earth's harsh gravity and deadly environment had created a species that thought differently about survival. In the control room above the simulation chamber, Instructor Galax watched the humans enter with growing curiosity. Something about their confidence seemed different from the usual pre-simulation bravado. As the chamber doors sealed shut, the instructor couldn't shake the feeling that today's test would be unlike any other in the Academy's history. The simulation chamber hummed to life around the 3 humans, its crystalline walls dissolving into a perfect recreation of a galactic command center. Holographic displays filled the air, showing thousands of star systems, fleet positions, and battle reports. In the observation room above, dozens of alien instructors and students gathered to watch what they expected would be another failed attempt. Simulation start in 3, 2, 1. The AI's neutral voice faded away as the virtual galaxy came alive around them. Jack immediately ignored the main fleet control panel that every other team had used as their primary command station. Instead, he pulled up communication systems and began broadcasting across all frequencies. Maria focused on diplomatic channels, while Alex started breaking down the larger fleet units into smaller, more mobile groups. In the observation room, Instructor Galax's crystalline form flickered with confusion. What are they doing? They're dismantling their command structure. The humans' first moves sent shockwaves through the simulated galaxy. Instead of consolidating their forces like the standard doctrine demanded, they scattered them. Hundreds of small ships vanished into asteroid fields, nebulae, and other hiding spots that the simulation's AI had never considered important before. Look at their fleet formations, one alien cadet whispered to another. There are no formations. It's complete chaos. But it wasn't chaos. It was controlled disorder. Maria had started sending diplomatic messages to every faction in the galaxy, but not to make peace. She was stirring up old rivalries, pointing out past betrayals, and highlighting territorial disputes that had been carefully managed by the Galactic Federation's protocols. They're making everything worse, Tam exclaimed, all 4 eyes wide with shock. The conflict levels are increasing across every sector. Alex's fingers flew across the tactical controls, coordinating their scattered ships into what looked like random attacks. But each strike had a purpose, not to win battles, but to create confusion. Small raiders hit supply lines, then vanished before larger forces could respond. Merchant ships disappeared into nebulae, only to emerge somewhere completely unexpected. The simulation's AI is trying to predict their next moves, one instructor noted, watching the computer's attempts to calculate probable strategies. But there's no pattern to predict. They're acting completely irregularly. Jack smiled as he watched the galaxy map. The simulation had been designed to handle organized warfare, where fleets met in proper battle and followed established rules of engagement. It had no way to cope with humans fighting the way their ancestors had, striking from shadows, disappearing into terrain, and turning enemies' strength against them. Warning, the AI announced. Multiple diplomatic treaties failing. Trade routes compromised. Fleet effectiveness reduced by 60%. In the virtual command center, Maria pointed to a cluster of systems on the map. Look, they're starting to fight each other instead of us, just like we planned. The humans had realized something that 50 years of alien cadets had missed. The simulation's victory condition wasn't about winning the most battles. It was about achieving peace. But nothing in the rules said you couldn't first let the carefully balanced galaxy tear itself apart. Impossible, an instructor muttered as they watched the display. They're using disorder itself as a weapon. Alex continued coordinating their hit-and-run attacks, but now with a different purpose. As the major powers weakened themselves fighting each other, the small human fleet began appearing at crucial moments, not to win battles, but to rescue civilian ships and protect refugee convoys. The smaller factions are asking for human protection, Maria reported, watching diplomatic messages flood in. They're seeing us as peacekeepers now, not enemies. In the observation room, understanding slowly dawned on the watching aliens. The humans hadn't just changed how they fought. They'd changed the entire nature of the conflict. By avoiding direct confrontation and letting the larger powers exhaust themselves, they were positioning their small force as the galaxy's only hope for stability. Their approval ratings are climbing across all sectors, Tam said in disbelief. The same chaos they created is making them look like saviors. Jack watched the simulation's time counter. Only 15 minutes had passed, but already the galaxy's political and military landscape was transforming. No one had ever approached the simulation this way, not in 50 years of attempts. But then again, no one had ever asked how a species from a death world would handle the problem. The simulation's virtual galaxy had descended into beautiful chaos. Major powers that had stood strong for centuries in the scenario now found their carefully built alliances crumbling. The human small fleet was everywhere and nowhere, appearing just long enough to cause problems before vanishing again. Their tactics make no sense, one of the observing instructors complained, their crystalline form flickering with frustration. They're fighting like survivors, Tam finished quietly. Like a species that evolved on a world that tried to kill them every day. Alex's fingers danced across the tactical controls as he coordinated another series of strikes. Their ships would emerge from nebula or asteroid fields, strike at critical infrastructure, then disappear before the bigger fleets could respond. The humans had learned these tactics from studying Earth's ancient guerrilla fighters, but they'd adapted them for space warfare in ways no one had ever considered. "Look at this," Maria said, pointing to the diplomatic channels. "The bigger powers are starting to blame each other for our attacks. Just as planned." She was right. The simulation's major factions, unable to catch the human ships, had begun suspecting each other of secret attacks on their territories. Old rivalries and suspicions, carefully managed by Galactic Federation protocols, were bubbling to the surface. Jack pulled up a new set of reports. Their big fleets are splitting up to chase ghosts. Every time they think they've found us, they find empty space, or another faction's ships instead. In the observation room, the crowd had grown larger. Word had spread through the academy about the humans' unusual approach, and now even senior instructors were coming to watch. No one had ever seen the simulation's eye struggle like this before. "Warning," the computer announced. "Multiple faction trust levels reaching critical low. Standard diplomatic protocols failing. Unable to predict next strategic developments." The humans had discovered something fundamental about the simulation. It was built on the assumption that all species would follow the same basic rules of warfare. But humans, coming from a death world where survival often meant breaking rules, saw opportunities where others saw only chaos. Alex suddenly straightened up, pointing to a new alert. "They're doing it. The major powers are turning their big fleets against each other." He was right. Unable to find and fight the elusive human ships, the major factions had begun suspecting each other of secret alliances and betrayals. Massive fleets, originally positioned to maintain order, were now engaging in battles across the galaxy. "This is unprecedented," Instructor Galax announced to the observation room. "No team has ever caused the simulation's primary powers to fight each other directly." Maria was already moving to the next phase of their plan. As the major powers weakened themselves in massive battles, she began broadcasting messages of peace and stability to the smaller factions. The human small fleet, which had seemed weak and insignificant at the start, was now the only force in the galaxy not caught up in the fighting. "Refugee ships are requesting our protection," Jack reported. "Smaller worlds are asking for our help maintaining trade routes. Everything's falling into place." The simulation's clock showed only 30 minutes had passed. In that short time, the humans had completely transformed the galaxy's power structure. The mighty fleets that everyone thought were crucial to victory were now part of the problem, while the humans' small, mobile force represented hope for stability. "I think I understand now," Tam said to the other observers. "They're not trying to win the war directly. They're changing what victory means." In the virtual command center, The three humans continued their work with quiet efficiency. They had spent 6 months learning how the galaxy thought war should be fought. But they had spent their entire lives learning how to survive against impossible odds on a death world. Now they were showing everyone which lesson mattered more. "Look at the simulation's victory parameters," Alex said suddenly. "The stability ratings in our protected sectors are rising. We're not bringing peace through strength like everyone else tried. We're bringing it by making their strength meaningless." The observers watched in stunned silence as the scenario continued to unfold in ways no one had ever imagined. The humans hadn't just changed the rules of the game. They'd shown why being underestimated could be the greatest advantage of all. The simulation's artificial intelligence was struggling. Warnings flashed across the holographic displays as it tried to process scenarios it had never been programmed to handle. In 45 minutes, the humans had pushed the system far beyond its original parameters. "The main battle fleets are down to 30% strength," Alex reported, watching the tactical display. "They've worn themselves out fighting each other, just like we planned." Maria's diplomatic channels were overflowing with messages. The smaller factions, watching the major powers tear each other apart, were now desperately seeking protection from the human fleet. Their small force, once dismissed as too weak to matter, had become the only source of stability in a galaxy gone mad. "Critical system error," the AI announced. "Unable to calculate standard combat resolution protocols. Multiple conflicting parameters detected." Jack smiled as he watched the error messages multiply. "The simulation can't handle what we're doing because it was built on Galactic Federation logic. But humans don't think like the Federation does." In the observation room, the crowd had grown even larger. Senior military officials had arrived, drawn by reports of the unprecedented events unfolding in the simulation. They watched in amazement as the humans continued to rewrite every rule of galactic warfare. "Look at their fleet movements," one official said, pointing to the tactical display. "They're not trying to hold territory or maintain supply lines. They're acting like a virus in the system." Tam, who had watched the humans prepare for this, nodded slowly. "They turned the simulation's greatest strength into its biggest weakness. It expects everyone to fight for control, but they're fighting for chaos." The humans had discovered something fundamental about the simulation's programming. It was designed to handle conflicts between powers fighting for territory, resources, or political control. But it had no way to process a force that deliberately avoided all three. "The major factions are starting to break apart," Maria announced. "Their own populations are demanding peace talks. They're tired of watching their mighty fleets chase shadows while their trade routes collapse." Alex had positioned their small ships at key points throughout the galaxy, not to control them, but to protect civilian vessels and maintain essential services. The humans had become seen as peacekeepers, not conquerors. "Warning," the AI's voice seemed to stutter. "Multiple core assumptions violated. Unable to maintain standard conflict parameters. System requires recalibration." Jack pulled up the victory conditions again, pointing to a specific line of code they had noticed during their preparation. "Look here, it never says we have to control the galaxy. It just says we have to achieve peace." The humans had realized something that 50 years of alien cadets had missed. The simulation wasn't actually testing their ability to win a war. It was testing their ability to end one. Every previous team had tried to achieve peace through superior firepower and better strategy. But on Earth, humans had learned that sometimes the path to peace meant letting old systems collapse so new ones could emerge. "Their approval ratings are off the charts," Tam reported to the stunned observers. "The smaller factions are officially requesting human leadership in peace negotiations." In the virtual command center, the three humans shared knowing looks. They had spent the night studying not just military tactics, but Earth's history of conflict resolution. They understood something their alien classmates didn't. Sometimes the best way to win a war was to change what winning meant. "The major powers are requesting emergency peace talks," Maria said, her voice calm but triumphant. "Their fleets are scattered. Their alliances are broken, and their own people are demanding change. They have no choice but to negotiate. The simulation's clock showed 50 minutes had passed. In less than an hour, 3 humans from a death world had accomplished what no one had managed in 50 years. They hadn't just beaten the simulation. They had shown why being different, being adaptable, being survivors, could be the greatest strength of all. Simulation parameters exceeded. The AI announced. Unprecedented peace scenario achieved. Core victory conditions met. In the observation room, silence fell as the implications became clear. The humans hadn't just won. They had completely transformed everyone's understanding of warfare, peace, and the nature of strength itself. The crystalline walls of the simulation chamber slowly faded back to their natural state as the program ended. For a moment, the 3 humans stood in silence, their bodies still tense from the intensity of the past hour. The display above them showed their final time, 53 minutes and 12 seconds. Simulation complete. Victory achieved. New record established. The AI announced, its neutral voice unable to convey the magnitude of what had just happened. The door to the chamber slid open, and they stepped out into absolute chaos. The corridor was packed with alien cadets, instructors, and officials, all trying to understand how 3 Deathworlders had accomplished the impossible. The noise of dozens of translator devices created a strange symphony of artificial voices. This can't be valid, one of the senior instructors argued, their crystalline form flickering rapidly with agitation. They didn't follow any of the established protocols. They deliberately created disorder. Instructor Galax moved through the crowd, their usual calm demeanor slightly shaken. The victory conditions were met. More than met, they achieved peace across the galaxy in less than an hour. No one has ever come close to that. Jack, Maria, and Alex found themselves surrounded by curious and confused faces. Some looked at them with new respect, others with barely concealed fear. Tam pushed through the crowd to reach them, all 4 eyes wide with excitement. "You actually did it," Tam exclaimed. "But the way you did it, it was like watching someone tear apart a puzzle instead of solving it." Maria smiled. "Sometimes breaking something is the first step to fixing it properly. We learned that on Earth, when old systems don't work anymore, you have to let them fall apart before you can build better ones." The crowd's attention shifted as the Academy's senior officials arrived. The command director, an ancient being of pure energy contained within a hovering metallic sphere, approached the humans. Their translator took a moment to warm up, crackling with static. In 50 years, the director's translated voice echoed through the corridor. "We have never seen anything like this. You didn't just beat the simulation. You forced us to question every assumption we had about warfare and peace." Alex stepped forward, his voice steady despite his exhaustion. "The simulation was built around how the Galactic Federation thinks war should be fought. But on Earth, we learned that survival sometimes means throwing away the rulebook." "That's exactly what concerns us," another official interrupted. "Your methods, they were completely unpredictable. You turned order into chaos, used confusion as a weapon. How can we trust such tactics?" Jack met the official's gaze. "Because we achieved real peace, not just a temporary victory. We showed that sometimes the best way to end a war is to change how everyone thinks about winning." The humans' words sparked intense debate among the gathered aliens. Some argued that their tactics were too dangerous to be accepted, while others insisted that the results spoke for themselves. The corridor buzzed with dozens of arguments in multiple languages. "The simulation's data is clear," Instructor Galax announced, projecting holographic charts into the air. Not only did they achieve peace faster than any previous attempt, but their solution shows a higher stability rating. The peace they created is predicted to last. The command director's sphere hummed thoughtfully. Perhaps this is why Earth was classified as a death world. Not just because of its harsh conditions, but because it produced a species that thinks differently about survival. Maria looked at her fellow humans, seeing in their eyes the same understanding. They had done more than just beat a simulation. They had shown the galaxy why humans were different, and why that difference could be valuable. "We need to completely reassess our tactical training programs," one of the senior instructors admitted. "Everything we thought we knew about conflict resolution needs to be reconsidered," Tam finished, looking at the humans with new understanding. "They showed us that sometimes the strongest approach isn't to overpower your opponent, but to transform the entire nature of the conflict." As the debate continued around them, the three humans stood quietly, letting the implications of their victory sink in. In less than an hour, they had changed 50 years of military doctrine. They had shown the galaxy that sometimes the best solutions come from the most unexpected places, even from a death world that no one thought could produce anything but warriors. 3 days after the simulation, the Galactic Federation Military Academy was still buzzing with excitement. The humans' victory had sparked a revolution in military thinking that spread far beyond the school's crystalline walls. News of their achievement had reached Earth, and messages of congratulation were pouring in from human colonies across the galaxy. Jack stood at the window of their quarters, watching alien cadets practicing new formations in the training yard below. Instead of the rigid traditional patterns they'd used before, they were now attempting more fluid, adaptable movements. Not all of them were succeeding, but they were trying. "They've asked me to help rewrite the tactical training manual," Maria said, looking up from her data tablet. "They want to include Earth's historical examples of asymmetric warfare and unconventional problem-solving." Alex walked in, carrying a stack of new training requirements. "The command director wants us to teach a special course next term. They're calling it Deathworld Strategic Thinking. Can you believe it?" The human success had forced the Academy to confront an uncomfortable truth. For centuries, they had seen Earth's harsh conditions as a mark against humanity. Now they were beginning to understand that surviving on a death world had given humans unique advantages: creativity, adaptability, and the ability to think beyond established rules. "Look at this," Jack said, pulling up a news feed. "They're already implementing some of our tactics in real-world peacekeeping operations. Small, mobile fleets, unexpected approaches, focusing on protecting civilians instead of controlling territory." Tam burst into their quarters, all four eyes bright with excitement. "You need to see this. The Command Council is making an announcement." They hurried to the Academy's main hall, where thousands of holographic displays showed the Council's emergency session. The ancient energy beings who led the Galactic Federation's military forces had reached a decision that would change everything. In light of recent events, the Council's spokesperson announced, their translated voice echoing through the hall, "We are officially reclassifying Earth's status. While it remains categorized as a death world due to its physical conditions, we now recognize this as a source of valuable tactical and strategic innovation." The announcement continued, each word sending ripples of excitement and concern through the gathered crowd. The Council was creating a new division of the Federation's military, one that would specifically study and implement human-inspired tactics. They were calling it the Adaptive Warfare Division. "They want all three of you to help lead it," Tam told them, translating the more technical parts of the announcement. "You'll be working with both human and alien strategists to develop new approaches to peacekeeping." Maria smiled. Not bad for three cadets who everyone thought would fail within 2 days. The command director approached them, their metallic sphere hovering silently for a moment before speaking. "You have shown us something remarkable," the translator conveyed. "Not just how to win a simulation, but how to think differently about victory itself." Back in their quarters that evening, the three humans reflected on how much had changed in just a few days. Their success had opened doors not just for themselves, but for all of humanity. The galaxy was beginning to see their species in a new light. "I got a message from the Earth Defense Force," Alex said, checking his tablet. "They're sending more human cadets next term. The Academy's actually requesting them." Jack nodded. "And this time, they won't be seen as just strong warriors from a harsh world. They'll be respected for how that world shaped their minds, not just their bodies. The three suns of Centauri Prime set slowly outside their window, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. In just 1 hour of simulation time, 3 humans had changed 50 years of military doctrine. They had shown the galaxy that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from power or size, but from the ability to think differently. You know what the best part is? Maria asked, watching the alien cadets still practicing their new formations in the twilight. We didn't just prove humans can adapt to the galaxy's way of doing things. We proved the galaxy can adapt to learn from us too. As night fell on the Academy, news of the humans' achievement continued to spread across the stars. On countless worlds, military strategists and peacekeepers were studying their tactics, learning from their approach, and beginning to understand why a species from a death world might have exactly the kind of thinking the galaxy needed.